Don't dirty the Italian tablecloth. Get her out the back door before the guests see this mess. My father didn't call 911. He screamed about his laundry. Seconds earlier, my sister Tessa had slammed my face into my graduation cake for a TikTok prank, ignoring the steel rod I used to hold the tears together. I heard the crunch of my own cheekbone before I felt the pain. Standing there with blood pouring down my face, watching my parents panic over a piece of fabric, I finally understood. To them, I wasn't a daughter who needed help. I was just a stain they needed to hide. Have you ever been hurt? Only to have your family worry more about their reputation than your pain. Tell me your story in the comments. I drove myself to the ER with one hand on the steering wheel and the other holding a blood-soaked napkin to my face. The pain was a sharp, rhythmic thumping, synchronized with my heartbeat, but my mind was terrifyingly clear. That's the thing about being an architect. You are trained to look at a collapsed structure and immediately see where the load-bearing wall failed. My family was the structure. And tonight, I finally saw the cracks in the foundation that had been there for 26 years. I wasn't just the quiet sister. I was the background staff in the production of The Tessa Show. While my sister was building a following of 3 million strangers by posting photos of latte art and effortless luxury, I was in the trenches, ensuring the lights stayed on. When the Wi-Fi went down at the estate, I fixed it. When my father's tax audits got messy, I organized the files. When Tessa needed a backdrop for a sponsorship deal, I designed and built it for free. They called it helping family. The contrast in our lives wasn't just unfair, it was mathematical. During university, Tessa spent her summers finding herself in Tuscany on my father's black card, posting photos of vineyards and claiming she was exhausted from the travel grind. Meanwhile, I was working double shifts at a drafting firm, sleeping 4 hours a night on a futon that smelled like mildew, just to pay my own tuition. I graduated with honors and zero debt, but at my graduation dinner, nobody toasted my hard work. They toasted Tessa's new engagement to a man she met on a yacht. I built my life brick by brick in the dark. She had hers delivered on a silver platter in the sun. But the rage didn't truly hit me until I was sitting in that sterile waiting room, looking at the red rust stains on my fingers. 3 days ago, when I was building that cake, I showed Tessa the schematic. I held up the steel reinforcement rod, a 1/4 inch thick, industrial grade, and told her, "Tessa, listen to me. This cake is 3 feet tall. It has a steel spine. Do not push anyone into it. It's dangerous." She rolled her eyes, checking her makeup in her phone camera. "God, Elena, you're such a buzzkill. It's just cake. Stop trying to make everything into a physics lecture." She heard me. She understood. She just didn't care. Her need for a 15-second clip of viral content was worth more to her than my physical safety. To her, I wasn't a person with a skull and skin. I was a prop. A prop that was supposed to bounce back, laugh it off, and clean up the mess. The nurse called my name. I stood up, feeling the blood dry and tighten on my cheek. I walked back to the exam room alone. No parents holding my hand. No sister apologizing. Just me and the cold, hard realization that the people who were supposed to protect me were actually the ones holding the weapon. They thought they could break me and just sweep the pieces under the rug like broken glass. But they forgot one thing about architects. We know exactly how to dismantle a house so it never stands again. I returned to the estate 2 weeks later. The doctor had done his best, but the 22 stitches left a raised, angry line running from my hairline down to my cheekbone. It wasn't something makeup could hide. It was a permanent map of my sister's cruelty. I walked through the front door, the heavy oak closing behind me with a solid thud. My parents and Tessa were in the living room, looking annoyed that I had interrupted their evening. "You're back," my mother said, not looking up from her magazine. "I hope you're done being dramatic. We have the engagement party next week, and you need to figure out how to cover that." She waved a hand vaguely towards my face. I didn't answer. I just walked over to the coffee table and placed the envelope down. It wasn't a thick envelope, but it was heavy. Inside were the itemized bills from the hospital, the plastic surgeon, and the laser clinic. $158,000. I said. My voice was calm, which seemed to unsettle them more than screaming would have. That's the cost of the reconstructive surgery to fix the nerve damage, the laser treatments for the scar, and the 3 months of work I'll miss because I can't look at a screen without a migraine. My father picked up the paper, his eyes scanning the total. He didn't flinch at the pain it represented. He flinched at the number. This is ridiculous, he spat, tossing the paper back onto the table. You expect us to pay this? You're an adult, Elena. You have your own insurance. My insurance covers accidents, I said. It doesn't cover assault. If I file a claim stating my sister smashed my face into a steel rod, they will go after her, and the police will get involved. Tessa scoffed from the armchair. Oh, please. Don't use that word. Assault. It was a prank. You're just trying to extort us. Then pay the bill, I said. Pay it, and I won't file the police report. I won't sue. This was the moment. The pivot point. I watched my parents look at each other, and I saw the silent calculation happening in their eyes. They weren't looking at my face and feeling guilt. They were looking at their bank account and feeling greed. 150,000 is a lot, my mother murmured, her voice taking on that wheedling tone she used when she wanted a discount. Can't you just get it stitched up at a regular clinic? You're an architect, Elena. You work behind a desk. It's not like you need a perfect face like Tessa does. Her face is her career. Yours is just functional. The words hung in the air, toxic and heavy. Functional. A background character who didn't need to be beautiful or whole, just operational. That sentence killed the last tiny, desperate part of me that still wanted their love. It was like a switch flipping in a dark room. The grief evaporated, replaced by a cold, crystalline focus. I let my shoulders slump. I made my voice tremble, just a little. Their posture relaxed instantly. They smelled weakness. They loved weakness. It meant they were in control. Well, my father said, leaning back, we can't just hand out that kind of money. We have liquidity issues right now with the market. But wait, I said, looking up with wide, teary eyes. You have the Diamond Homeowners Policy, the one with the $5 million liability coverage. My father frowned. So? I don't live here anymore, I said. Legally, I'm a guest, a third party. If we told the insurance company that I tripped on the rug in the dining room, that it was an accident, the liability coverage would pay the full medical bill, plus pain and suffering. I saw the light bulb go on in Tessa's eyes first, then my mother's, then my father's. The insurance pays? Tessa asked, sitting up. So, I don't get in trouble? And Mom and Dad don't have to pay? Exactly, I said. They cut a check for the damages. I get my face fixed. You guys save your cash, and the police never hear about the prank. My father smiled. It was a slow, predatory smile. Now that, he said, is a smart solution. You're finally using that brain of yours for the family. It's just a little white lie, my mother added, already mentally spending the money they were saving. Everyone wins. Okay, I said, forcing a weak smile. I'll set it up. But we need to do it right. We need to meet with the insurance adjuster and sign the affidavits together. So the story matches. Done, my father said. Set it up. They agreed instantly. Without a second of hesitation. They didn't see a trap. They saw a free lunch. They were so blinded by the prospect of saving money that they didn't realize they were agreeing to commit a federal felony. They thought I was their accomplice. They had no idea I was their executioner. I didn't leave my parents' house immediately after they agreed to the fraud. I waited until they were celebrating in the kitchen, pouring champagne to toast their own genius. While the corks popped, I slipped into my father's study. I knew exactly where the safe was behind the portrait of his grandfather, and I knew the combination. Tessa's birthday. It hadn't changed in 10 years. I wasn't stealing money. I was retrieving a promise. I pulled out the heavy leather-bound folder containing my grandmother's trust fund deed. My parents hadn't looked at this document since the day she died. They treated the trust like a bottomless piggy bank that just appeared in their accounts every month. They never read the fine print, but I had. I sat in the dim light of the study and flipped to page 42, paragraph C, section 9, the morality clause. In the event that the designated trustees or primary beneficiaries are convicted of, or admit to, any felony involving financial dishonesty, fraud, or moral turpitude, their rights to the estate shall be immediately revoked. Control of all assets, properties, and liquid funds shall transfer automatically to the contingent guardian. My finger traced the name listed at the bottom of the page. Elena Vance. Grandma knew. She saw their greed long before I did. She built a fail-safe into her legacy, a trapdoor waiting for them to step on it, and thanks to their arrogance, they were about to jump on it with both feet. I slipped the deed into my bag and walked out. They were still laughing in the kitchen. The next 3 days were a blur of cold forensic preparation. I didn't sleep. I compiled. I went back to the surgeon and requested the full, unredacted medical report. It didn't just say, cut. It read, deep tissue laceration and hairline orbital fracture, consistent with forceful, high-velocity impact against a rigid, serrated metal object. Angle of entry suggests downward force applied from behind. It was a scientific description of an assault. I made 3 copies. Then, I organized the digital trail. I exported the metadata from the photo taken seconds before the impact, the one Tessa posted and then deleted. It showed the time, the location, and the gleam of the steel rod. I downloaded the voice memo I had recorded during our family meeting, the one where my father explicitly said, "It's just a little white lie. Everyone wins." Finally, I made the call. Not to the police, but to a private number I had found on a specialized legal forum. "Mr. Sterling?" I said when he answered. "My name is Elena Vance. I have a case of high-value insurance fraud happening this Friday, and I have the perpetrators on record agreeing to it." Mr. Sterling was the senior fraud investigator for the insurance provider my parents used. When I explained the situation, the $158,000 claim, the fake trip and fall story, the assault, he didn't ask why I was turning in my own family. He just asked for the time and place. "Friday at 2 in the afternoon, I told him. "At the family attorney's office. They'll be signing the sworn affidavit. I can buzz you in." "I'll be there," he said. I hung up and looked at the stack of documents on my desk. The deed, the medical report, the audio file, the investigator. They thought we were going to a meeting to sign a check. They didn't realize they were walking into an autopsy of their entire lives. The family attorney's office was designed to make you feel small. It was on the 42nd floor, a corner suite encased in glass that looked down on the city like a god watching ants. The walls were lined with mahogany paneling that smelled of lemon oil and old money. This was where the Vance family solved their problems, usually by writing a check or threatening a lawsuit until the problem went away. Today, they thought they were solving me. My parents and Tessa walked in 10 minutes late, bringing a gust of expensive perfume and arrogance with them. They looked victorious. My father was wearing his deal-closing suit, the navy one with the silk tie. My mother had her hair blown out, looking less like a concerned parent and more like a CEO merging a company. And then there was Tessa. She wasn't wearing black or looking somber. She was wearing a cream cashmere sweater and checking her reflection in the glass of a framed diploma. She caught my eye and winked. "Thanks for not being a brat about this," she whispered, leaning in close enough that I could smell her mint breath. "Honestly, the scar makes you look mysterious, like a Bond villain. It works for you." She smiled, a tight, camera-ready expression that didn't reach her eyes. She genuinely believed she was paying me a compliment. In her mind, she had bought my silence with an insurance company's money, and I was just grateful to be included in the scheme. She didn't see the person standing next to her. She saw a loose end that had finally been tied off. "Let's get this over with," my father announced, taking the seat at the head of the massive conference table. "We have a dinner reservation at 7. The attorney, a man named Mr. Blackwood who had been cleaning up my father's messes for 30 years, slid a thick document across the polished wood. "This is the affidavit of accidental injury," Blackwood said, his voice smooth and bored. "It states that on the date in question, Elena Vance tripped on a loose rug in the dining room and fell onto a glass vase. It explicitly absolves Tessa Vance of any liability and confirms the injury was unforeseen and accidental. He tapped the paper with a gold pen. Once this is signed and notarized, we submit the claim for $158,000. The funds should be released within 10 business days. The air in the room was thick with their hubris. They weren't nervous. They weren't checking the door. They were relaxed. My mother was actually humming a low tune as she reached for her reading glasses. They were so confident in their control over me, so certain that I was the same quiet, obedient daughter who fixed the Wi-Fi and faded into the background that they didn't even notice I hadn't sat down. I clutched my bag tighter. Inside, the folder containing the trust fund deed and the medical report felt heavy, like a loaded weapon. I looked at the document on the table, a lie printed on expensive legal paper. It was the architectural blueprint of their destruction, and they were practically fighting to sign it first. "Well?" my father said, pushing the pen toward me. "Sign it, Elena. Let's make this easy." They expected my submission. What they were about to get was their confession. Mr. Blackwood raised his notary stamp. "Is this statement true to the best of your knowledge?" "Yes," my father said calmly. "Elena fell. It was an accident." Tessa didn't even look up. "Yep, gravity." One by one, they signed confident, greedy, careless. In the silence, the scratch of the pen sounded final, like a blade falling. They thought it was free money. They didn't realize they were signing a sworn lie. When the document slid to me, I set it down. "No." My father stiffened. "What do you mean, no?" "I won't sign," I said evenly. "Because it's perjury." I placed my phone on the table and pressed play. Their voices filled the room. "It's just a white lie. Free money. So I don't get in trouble?" The color drained from their faces. "I'm not a traitor," I said. "I'm a whistleblower. I opened the trust fund deed." Grandma added a morality clause. "Any trustee who commits fraud forfeits the estate." My father stood up too fast. "It is," I said. "You signed. You lied under oath. The crime is complete." I closed the folder. "Which means you're no longer trustees." I met his eyes. "I am." The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Blackwood? Insurance Fraud Division is here." That was the moment they understood. This wasn't a negotiation. It was an eviction. The charges were read. Handcuffs clicked. Careers, money, and power collapsed quietly. I watched them leave. I didn't feel joy, only relief. They did it for money. So did I. I sold the estate, built my own firm, and kept the scar they gave me as proof. They tried to make me submit. Instead, they handed me control.